Who do you most trust to be sitting in this chair?
Heading into the 1992 election season, President George Bush looked unbeatable, with an approval rating nudging 90% at the end of the Gulf War.
We'll know soon.
Top Democrats like Mario Cuomo decided to take a pass, clearing the way for an ambitious young governor from Arkansas.
A star since first elected governor at age 32, Clinton is driven less by ideology than by what works.
Meanwhile, George Bush was presiding over a new world order. On his watch, the Berlin Wall came down, the US signed major arms reduction treaties with the Soviet Union, and the Cold War effectively came to an end with the collapse of the USSR.
This is a long way from the harsh days of the harshest Iron Curtain days. A long way from that.
It sure was. But on the home front, things were less rosy. As American forces triumphed in Kuwait, the US economy was slipping into its first recession in almost a decade. Unemployment climbed to 8%.
America's wonderful, ain't it, Mr. Bush?
In late 1991, Conservative commentator Pat Buchanan, a former speechwriter for Presidents Nixon and Reagan, announced that he was challenging President Bush for the Republican nomination.
Nothing's going to stop us from going forward to a new era of greatness in a new century about to begin, and we can go to that era of greatness if we go forward together.
America first!
Buchanan's campaign bore many of the hallmarks of Donald Trump's run a quarter of a century later.
Now, you let me talk for a minute. You're dead wrong.
Nationalism, isolationism, anti-immigration, anti-free trade, with more than a hint of racism. His main gripe with Bush, breaking this election promise.
Read my lips. No new taxes.
January the 8th, 1991, President Bush suddenly falls ill.
The president collapsed during a state dinner at the residence of Japan's prime minister and was taken back to his guest quarters.
And for a few minutes, Pat Buchanan thought that he might just have become the Republican presidential nominee, but Bush recovered. It was just a gastric bug. Still, George Bush's political frailty was revealed the following month in the first in the nation New Hampshire primary.
There it is. Close race, something we did not expect, and I don't believe George Bush did either.
The next day, a wild card. Billionaire businessman Ross Perot, the founder of the company EDS, appears on CNN's Larry King show.
By the way, is there any scenario in which you would run for president? Can you give me a scenario in which you'd say, okay, I'm in?
If you're that serious, you, the people, are that serious, you register me in 50 states.
Perot's supporters heard his call. They mobilised and he was off and running. Meanwhile, scandal-prone Governor Bill Clinton was closing in on the Democratic Party's presidential nomination.
I'm going to fight like hell.
Pat Buchanan stayed in the race until June, winning more than 30% in another 4 states, but never seriously challenging Bush. Meanwhile, Perot had surged to the top of the national polls, beating both Bush and Clinton, running as a self-funded political outsider preaching fiscal discipline. But with more attention came more scrutiny and concerns about Perot's temperament. He also lacked policies or kept flip-flopping.
Are we flexible to change it and improve it? Absolutely.
Staff began to quit on him. His polls slumped, and in July, the quixotic billionaire dropped out of the race.
I have concluded that we cannot win in November.
Then, in October, another twist. Just a month before the election, Perot was running again and onto the debate stage.
The thing that separates my candidacy and makes it unique is that this came from millions of people in 50 states all over this country who wanted a candidate that worked and belonged to nobody but them.
But Ross Perot's rebooted campaign never regained the support of the summer of 1992.
My dog Millie knows more about foreign affairs than these two bozos.
Come election day, he still won over 19% of the vote, more than any other third-party candidate since Teddy Roosevelt in 1912. Experts still debate whether Perot cost Bush re-election or not, but it's safe to say he didn't help.